Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a special episode of the Productivity Mastery podcast. Why is it a special episode? Because I'm bringing you back one of my favorite people, one of my favorite executives, a friend of mine. We've been knowing each other since, I think, 2017 was the time we met in Austria at a speaker's dinner. And ever since we've been friends, and I've been getting inspired by Melissa, bringing her back to the podcast, following her content, her career, and I can't wait for you, those of you who see her for the first time, to learn from her. Melissa, how are you this morning? Looking special.
I'm great. Yeah, I thank you for having me back. It's every time I'm on this podcast, there's something weird. The first time my cat broke a giant glass bowl and it shattered everywhere in the background. And now I'm wearing a mullet because I lost a bet. So, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to chat. And thanks for entertaining me and my mullet. It'll be business in the front and party in the back, I guess, is the episode.
Yeah, I think the second time you came because that's your third appearance on this podcast.
Yeah.
The second time, I think your cat was just going around the screen all the time.
Always something. I try to make it special and keep it entertaining. So
I love it. And today we'll talk about leadership. Today we'll talk about productivity. We have a lot of things to cover. By the way, those of you who are watching us live, first of all, let us know in the comments, where are you tuning in from? But also, if you have any questions, anything you want to add to the discussion, we'll be checking the questions and maybe cover some of them. But Melissa, why don't you give us the short introduction about who's Melissa, kind of the overview of your career so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Melissa Rosenthal. I'm a media and tech executive. The first half of my career was in new media digital publishing. I was very early at BuzzFeed, and then I went to go help start a company called Cheddar. And then I went over to B2B SaaS and ran marketing for a company called ClickUp, which is work management, project management software. And now I am on my own, co-founder of a company called Outlever that turns companies into the biggest trade publication in their industry and allows them to reach their prospects at scale through relevant news conversations. And it's a little bit about me. There's a lot along the way, but that's the TLDR 15-second overview of who I am.
But quite an impressive career for such a young leader like yourself. It's crazy how much you've already achieved.
Thank you. Yeah, I've had a great career. It's been really cool to pivot from different industries and see trends and see the rise and fall of different companies. It's just been, I feel very lucky to have that career and all these learnings and be able to apply them now on my own in my new company. And it's great. Yeah, I'm very thankful and grateful of my career.
So you've been running as an executive at different companies for a number of years, but now you're back to being a founder. Why is that the case? Why did you decide to build Outlever?
Yeah, well, it's my first time as a co-founder. I've always been kind of ground floor executive, but formal founder. This is my first time. There are a couple of reasons why I decided it was right to go out on my own. I think there's kind of a gut feeling when you feel like you've done all that you can kind of do in the world of building other people's companies, which and maybe it's a feeling unique to me, but I had that itch too. I need to build this for myself. The other reason was that there was a unique problem that I felt needed to be solved, and I felt uniquely positioned to be able to be the one to do that. I had a great idea with my co-founder, and my co-founder is an amazing technical guy, and we were able to kind of bring these complementary skill sets together to be able to build something that we thought could really change the face of marketing. That's really the main reason. It's kind of like I had the itch. I wanted to build. I wanted to be able to build something that could really, I think, change and be disruptive in a world I feel is becoming very disruptive, but also kind of stagnant, which is such an interesting intersection of what could be happening, right? You have all this, you have all of these really amazing things happening in AI. Everything feels like it's moving faster than ever. But then in marketing, everything kind of feels like it's standing still. You know, people are still using the same playbooks. They're afraid to experiment. We've been doing the same things for years and years and years. And I wanted to bring a new lens to that with my background in media and journalism. And and I think it's the perfect time. I feel like when there's kind of chaos, that it's always the perfect time to build, and I feel like we're in definitely a period of interesting chaos. So yeah, I'm excited to be building.
So 2025, right? We're recording this. It's the beginning of February 2025. What are some of the biggest challenges executives have to deal with that we don't talk a lot about, but they're out there?
Yeah, I'll speak to maybe marketing specifically, but I think today everything is just more uncertain than it's ever been. Like everything is uncertain. I think the labor and workforce is uncertain. Company growth rates are uncertain. I don't want to. I don't want to go down. I'm like about to go down a rabbit hole. I think it's just we're kind of in this really interesting phase of the intersection of AI growth now kind of coming up again. Like you see a lot of companies raising big rounds. Marketing still recovering from 22, 23 when there was kind of a downsizing of tech companies where they're beginning to grow again. But I think that there's just this hesitancy, this like you used to see a lot of boldness and leadership and a lot of like really cool bets that people would take. And I think now it's a little bit more conservative from the perspective of like we need to stick to what we know is working and maybe not go outside of that so much, or nothing is working, but we're afraid to make changes. I think there's a lot of pressure on executives, especially marketing executives, more than ever. And to be really efficient, to do a ton with less, to be able to scale and grow astronomically depending upon the bets. I mean, there are some really big bets out there right now based on valuation and multiples and investments. And I think it's just a weird time. And you have AI. So how do you incorporate AI? How do you make your entire team more efficient? How do you do more with less? How do you upskill the people that you have? And all of these things together make it a really kind of tumultuous time to be an executive. And at the same time, how do you still be a great leader and show people good, true leadership and shield them from some of this, but also up level them so that they're not impacted? The other piece of it is, I think every day we see something new within machine learning and AI, and it's scary because it's kind of like what's going to happen next, and the ability to attach yourself and learn a lot of these tools and new products out there and AI in a very deep way is now, I think, more important than ever. So it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot for everyone. It's a real lot for executives because they're tasked with just so much. There's so much pressure, and tenure is shorter than ever in both like the CMO and CEO roles. So yeah, it's a hard time to be an executive, like at a company for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like it's been for the past, at least 5 years, since COVID, with all the uncertainty and all these kind of things. What did you do in, the last couple of companies you've been working for to be able to stay in control, to stay focused? Like, what was your thought process? How do you approach a working week?
Yeah, I mean, things were always tough. Like, I don't want to discount that. It's never an easy thing to be an executive at any company. You were just tasked with so much. The pressure is enormous. At the stages I was at, we were working 24/7 because we believed in something. I think first of all, I think a lot of the way that I worked was I tried to manage up in a way that protected my teams from some of the pressures that I was feeling, which I guess is just maybe good management. But really like be in the weeds and be on the ground floor with the team, with my team, working alongside them, showing them that I'm doing the work as well. So very like player coach mentality. I think maybe just that's the reason I'm kind of back to founding, because I really want to be doing as well. I don't love like the idea of just managing. And I think we're actually shifting away from pure management as a skill set anyway. I think they, today executives and people that are leaders are still expected to really do and get in the weeds and be very granular, and middle management is sort of going away. But it was really, that's my style. I love building. I love being in the trenches alongside a team. I think that's why I chose the companies at the stages that they were at, is because I had the opportunity to do that. So yeah, I mean, my style of leadership is I'm right there with you. I'm building with you. If whatever goes well is your win, and whatever does not go well is my challenge. So, I just try to be as good of a leader as I can and show people that I'm supportive of them and that I give very honest feedback, but I'm doing it for the right reasons. I think that's really all you can kind of ask of a leader, and the people that I've mentored me. It's kind of the same way. I give people a long leash, but I allow them to have access to me whenever they want, and I champion them and I help them, and yeah.
Actually, really happy that we're talking about that. We had another great leader on the podcast. His name is Chris Williams. He's a former vice president at Microsoft. He was leading the HR division. And one thing he emphasized on was often people who are employees, middle managers, they're always looking upward, and they kind of feel like, oh, these executives, they take this, make these decisions. But often many people forget to put themselves in the shoes of the executive. Like, I mean, these are people, like everybody, right? Like, and the fact that you can actually share, like, your thoughts, your concerns, you're just somebody who's trying to do your best.
Yeah.
And you're not always succeeding.
Yeah, it's easy to like kind of dehumanize people at the top because you don't see everything that's going on around them, which is just like enormous pressure at all times. They're getting slacked at 3 a.m. when something goes wrong. And a good leader is the fact that you're not seeing that, right? Like you're not seeing all the crazy challenges that your leader is facing, and you're able to focus on your job. And that person's giving you great directives. So yeah, I think it is hard. I mean, but that is the role of a good leader. It's to kind of share as much as they need to know to be able to do their jobs well, but shield them from the rest, because too much information can be just, debilitating, honestly. Like if you know too much about what's going on within an organization, you're not able to do your job well if you're not in that role where you need to have that information. So I think it's definitely like, I don't know if you were going this direction, but the distilling down of information to the right people at the right time is definitely a skill set. If you can't overshare, you can't undershare, you have to make them feel like you are letting them in on the things they need to know. And yeah, it's tough. It's a juggling of 1,000 different skill sets at any given time, plus doing the work.
Is it, if I ask you this question, what kept you up at night? Was it to some level stakeholder management in all directions? So what was the biggest concerns, stressors?
Yeah,
what kept you
sometimes.
most at night?
Yeah, like sometimes you're so busy doing your job and you're so laser focused on getting the best results that you forget to manage up, and maybe you're not as transparent or there's not enough visibility. And then that person's like, well, what's going on with this? What is this person doing? What is this person doing? So you're dealing with, layers of, it's hard to provide the level of visibility that usually needs to be provided to the top, but then still also perform really, really well. Because all of a sudden you're, the managing up is just like information overload about what people are doing. You don't want it to seem like you're giving upper management or, your boss or your CEO false wins, or you're overinflating good things, or you're focusing on negative things. So it's kind of this perfect balance of how much information do you go up and how much information goes down. And the things that kept me up at night were just, business goals. Like, how do we hit them? How do you get the people and motivate the people under you enough to hit them? Of course, there's always, like when you have a large team, there's always personnel issues, which that's a lot. Managing people is definitely an interpersonal challenge as well, when you have a lot of people on the team and they all have different personalities and working styles, and some are A performers and some are B performers, and you have to manage out the C performers, and you're constantly evaluating talent and you have to bring new people on. So it's just there's so much around the actual like getting things done that it then gets hard to get things done. But that's the ultimate goal. If you're not producing great work, then you're not the leader for that role. But you have to do all this other stuff. And maybe AI will take the job of that a little bit, which is great. Like there's I'm going to give a shout out. There's a software called Opry, and Opry does performance management and reviews, and it's driven by AI. And we used to spend, even as a leader, I would spend 4 weeks doing that a year, and then they changed the cycles, and it's like, no, we need to do them consistently. And then all of a sudden, like, you have a huge chunk of your time, which is you never during the day. It's 12 till 3 a.m. where you're doing performance reviews. And of course, those are very important to people's goals and growth. But I don't know if I believe in them in the traditional way that they were done. I think we also stuck to things because they were done that way. And like, should people be evaluated once a year? Probably not. It should probably be being an ongoing thing where you're documenting their progress and you're documenting their work, and it's consistent and it's recorded and it's summarized. But we didn't have the technology to be able to do that. So again, that's another thing that you're hyper focused on. It's growing talent, it's leveling talent up, it's getting talent out the door when they're not great. So it's just a ton of different things that you're just kind of juggling all at once.
I think sometime around 2 years ago, I saw something on LinkedIn or somewhere, and I was so proud of you. I saw you were behind this Super Bowl ad. And I wonder, can you maybe talk a little bit about it? How, like, was that your idea, the idea of the team? And of course, the end result was really amazing piece.
Thanks.
But can you give us a little bit of behind the scenes? Was it a smooth ride? Was it like kind of a crazy, stressful process?
Oh yeah. I didn't sleep for a really long time. I would say that was probably maybe the most stressful project of my entire career.
That is so incredible, by the way. That's incredible.
Thank you. Yeah. I feel very lucky and grateful to be able to have done that. I had the best team in the world doing it with me. It was all in-house. We didn't do anything externally. So it was even more incredible. And the team is just like, it was like the rock star, all-star internal team, creative team to be able to pull that off. But oh my God, it was incredibly stressful. Even the decision to do it, you're a company in which you just raised a lot of money. You feel good about things. But like, I think it was maybe a couple months after we did that, there was a huge economic downturn and software companies were downsizing in huge waves, like literally like 3 months after that happened. And I think it was just, you have, we actually, the executive team voted on whether we were going to do it or not. And it was like a hand raise around the table. And, our CFO didn't want to do it because she's like, well, what if the economy shits the bed? And then it ended up shitting the bed like a couple months later. But yeah, it's definitely stressful, especially at a company like that, because you're not CPG. So not every B2B company does a Super Bowl ad. We did one, there's a lot of different reasons why we did one. Because we focused a lot around brand awareness. That was such a huge investment that we had made over the course of the past 2 years. So it did make sense for us to do it. And we did it regionally. We didn't buy a national ad. So we did the ad in every market that we had done a significant level of brand awareness and brand investment into. But it was definitely, as a challenger move for a B2B company to do it, for sure. But yeah, there's a lot of pressure on it because we're not Budweiser, we're not Lay's chips, we're not CPG, we're not a consumer company. So to do a Super Bowl ad, you have even more pressure on you because it's not like something you have to be doing. It's something that, hey, let's see how this works. This is a very expensive experiment.
Was it easy to track to measure the return on investment, or it's kind of difficult to know where
it depends on how you're thinking about that. Like, you can do a regression analysis of traffic to the site. You can see workspaces created for us, social sentiment, number of impressions across everything that you're doing, press, but the dollar mentions within like Gong and recording software for sales calls. But in terms of like dollar for dollar ROI, you're never going to be able to track it that granularly. So yeah, it's, you can overall tell if it was a success. And the press that the company has gotten around it in general, the millions and millions and millions of impressions of being able to talk about it. It was featured on, I think it was like the CBS show the next day morning, where there's an entire segment on it, and that drove a ton of traffic. So there's, there's a lot of strategy that goes into around when do you release it? How much of it do you release? And, it's so funny because you have this level of self-awareness and you're like, it's our biggest moment of the year. We want to hold it back and then, release it to the world on the day of the Super Bowl. But the reality is, like, we're not 7-Up. We're not Pepsi. No one is waiting for our Super Bowl ad. So we released it early so that we could soak up all the press that our competitor Monday, they were also running one. We're like, oh, they're holding out on running their Super Bowl ad. We're like, no one's waiting for Monday.com's Super Bowl ad. So we were like, let's just push ours out there, get it picked up by every press outlet that we can ahead of time, get those impressions as well. So there's definitely a lot of strategy that goes into like, how do you soak up as much attention as possible and get as much mileage out of it as you possibly can. On the day of the Super Bowl, we created a war room in which we had, this was very BuzzFeed. I was like, we have to do this because this is what we did at BuzzFeed. We gift 500 different facial reactions from the founding fathers from the ad, and would respond to every single person on Twitter that tweeted at us with one of those reactions. So the impressions going back to our responses with our watermark from the actual advertisement was enormous. So there's just a ton of strategy that goes into doing that. And I think, luckily I'd worked at BuzzFeed long enough to see through a war room when we did someone else's Super Bowl campaign and how that worked and what the most efficient way of doing that was. So I brought that to the table too. But yeah, it was amazing. I mean, I had a great team of people. It was a success, but it was incredibly hard. I didn't sleep for months.
From what I hear, you're one of these down in the trenches kind of leader. Just let's go, everybody.
And I forgot, it was COVID. It was COVID. So we had our Super Bowl shoots planned, which, were a lot of money each. And we didn't even know if our talent was going to be able to show up because you had to get COVID tested before you went on set. I had COVID 2 days before we shot, and I thought I was going to have to sit in a van in the middle of a parking lot in LA outside looking at a monitor because I might not be allowed onto the set. You had chief COVID officers on set. It was chaotic, but we did it.
What are you doing in such moments when you're overwhelmed, you're stressed, you're under, unbeatable odds, but you got to show up? How do you, push yourself to remain cool-headed so you can lead everybody else?
I have this feature in my brain that is kind of like the Bose noise canceling feature, where I can do this at I think very high pressure moments. It's like fight or flight type of thing where I can turn it on and just tune everything out. Like every little doubt, worry that isn't related to the task at hand goes away. And I am just hyper focused on getting the best results out of what I need to get done. So, all these things that are in my mind about what about this person and this person, everything goes away except we got to get this done and it has to be amazing. And then the only thing that I allow into my head are the ideas that I don't want to miss out on while we're doing it. So if I have a good idea about how to roll it out after, or something else that we're doing, or we want to get this B-roll so we could turn it into a behind the scenes video, which we did, all of those ideas kind of are able to float through. And then I just tune everything else out. It is laser focused. And that's what you have to do. You have to laser focus. If you are juggling a million things while you're doing the most important thing, and the most expensive thing your company has ever done, you're not going to have great results. So you gotta do a little bit of that noise canceling.
I think we had this conversation back in Austria, where I asked you, where is all this confidence coming from? Is that something you built? Is that something you were born with? Because there's many listeners, right? And anybody who's listening to you, Melissa, you just go and get it done. I haven't seen you ever not in a position of strength. You might have been under pressure. You might be under pressure now. I don't know. But you're always coming from this place of strength, the place of self-belief. I'm going to figure it out, kind of.
Yeah.
What would be your recommendation to people out there in terms of building confidence?
I think it's a level of anxiety, if I'm being very honest, that allows me to kind of bulldoze my way through, because there's no other option. There's never been any other option. And I'm going to get the thing that I said I'm going to get done, and that's it. And that's sort of just my anxiety driving me to do that, which I guess if you can channel something that can be debilitating into something that is a superpower, more power to you. And I think a lot of people struggle with different things. And my advice to them is, can you channel that into something that works for you in the working world? And it's a lot of culling that skill and figuring that out. The second thing I'll say is maybe a little bit more controversial is people that you think know a lot more than you probably don't. I think there was a lot of that imposter syndrome going on early in my career. And then I just learned, after seeing a lot of these people that I thought knew a lot more than me make decisions that were actually I thought were wrong, and they were actually wrong, and I was right. I started to just trust myself a little bit more, and I've said this on like another podcast, but I think the trusting yourself is actually what imposter syndrome is. You don't believe in yourself enough to trust yourself with decisions, and you defer to others and deflect to other people because you don't believe that you're right. And I see this in leadership all the time. I see people not wanting to make a decision because they don't believe in themselves or trust themselves enough to make that decision, to stand by it. And I think I've just grown enough where I trust myself to make decisions, and if they're wrong, I pivot really fast. But I've been in the industry enough to kind of know what I don't know, but know that I know more than a lot of people, and to believe in myself. And I see a lot of people with bravado, and no one knocks that down. But we talk about imposter syndrome a lot, and I think it's just interesting. It's like you should be able to be confident and be confident about the confidence. I think we talk about imposter syndrome, especially in women, too much actually. And we don't talk about confidence and bravado and pushing through and being able to, have the confidence to do the things that you want to do. I think if we stop talking about the bad and we focus on the good, just puts more people in a position of power to feel like they can do the things they want to do. And I guess I've gotten to a level where I'm kind of I have a chip on my shoulder. I just do. I bulldoze my way through things. Maybe sometimes in a bad way, but I think we all have good qualities and bad qualities as leaders. And I think I learn and I move and I pivot very fast, and I have high EQ, and I'm able to do that. So that's the answer. That's a long-winded answer, but
Do you still sometimes hear those voices, kind of negative self-talk, doubts, like feeling like imposter? Do you still kind of have them?
I think maybe I'm like overly optimistic sometimes. That it's not really self-doubt anymore. Like I believe in myself, and I know that nothing is really like impossible. I've seen like what I thought was impossible happen now like 3 times, and I know you can build something from the ground up. I know you can teach people what a new motion is. I know you can kind of like disrupt an industry multiple times, even when like no one is like where you are. I've seen that. And I think having years and years and seeing it done multiple times, you start to believe that everything is possible again. And it's funny. It's like there's this wave that happens. You start out believing that everything is possible because you're young and you're naive and you're hungry. And then it goes like this, and it's like, oh God, the reality hits you. And then I think you kind of like come out of the clouds, and then all of a sudden you're back up to where you were when you started. But if you don't let some of that stuff affect you when you're going through it, you can come out a lot cleaner. And I think that's where I am. I started out there, and like now I'm back there. And you get to different peaks and valleys in your career. But I always like ask people to like think about the time before they started doing what they were doing, and the mindset that they started out with. And how do you get back to that? Because that's probably the clearest and most just optimistic you'll ever be. So to get to that mindset, I think frees you to be able to do everything that you want to do. But all the things along the way try to drag you down.
Yeah, I hear you, and I'd agree with you that confidence is built through experience a lot of times. Like you're like, oh, I don't know, is it gonna work? You're insecure about something, but then you do it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times. Now you know. I can figure it out. Even if I don't know how, I'll figure it out somehow. And you kind of start slowly building this confidence. I mean, as a kid, I was such an insecure person, especially speaking in front of people. Being in high school, just every time I'll have an oral examination, I was done. I'll know all the lesson, everything perfectly well. They put me on the blackboard back in the time, and the teacher asked me to talk about the lesson, and I'll just freeze. It was horrible, right? And then at some point somebody challenges you to go and start speaking, right? That's an example. And then you have to do it. preparation is big, right? Especially early on when you're not so secure. Like the
Yep.
more you prepare, the more confident you feel. But then with experience, you get to a level that it's not that you're not nervous at all in whatever it is you do, but it's just so much less. It's like
Maybe
those
you
thoughts
don't
are
fear
coming.
the unknown, right? Like the unknown is the scariest part of all of that. It's not actually doing it. It's the what will happen. And I think your brain filling in the gaps of everything that can go wrong. But once you've done it, and even if it was a disaster, you've done it, right? So you learn from that. And I think like that's also, I mean, that's a great point. I think it is just your brain filling in fear gaps, which like in every situation, like, I mean, that's what my anxiety does. I wake up every morning and my brain fills in fear gaps. And then all of a sudden I'm just like, stop it. Like, let's just focus on making today great and doing everything we need to do to like have an amazing day. And then those gaps go away and then things aren't as bad. And then you have big wins and then things happen. And it's like, stop yelling at me, brain. Like if I do the thing, you are able to overcome that very quickly. But it's hard. It's like, how do you quiet your mind? I've tried meditation. It doesn't really work for me. Working out helps. But I think driven people will always have that level of, in their head, right? Because they want so deeply for things to work. You want it more than anything in the world. You're very driven to have that.
Yeah. Sometimes you're going to bed and you're like, I can't wait to wake up tomorrow morning so I can
Yes. You're so excited. You're like, I mean, last night we were up till like 3 a.m. and I knew I had this pretty early. It's fine, but I was excited to be up. And I was like, I was kind of just like, it's kind of cool because some of our customers are in different time zones, so they're still working. And I was like, damn, I wish everyone was still working right now. Like I was sad because like the world turned off, and you get that feeling and like, you're like, oh, this is special, right? Like when you're sad that everyone else is like not awake because you want to keep doing the thing, you're in a good headspace. I mean, sometimes I don't feel like that. I feel exhausted. I'm just like, I need to go to sleep. I wish everyone wasn't still up. But you savor those days. And I think those are the ones that really give you energy to operate when you're, doing 100+ hour weeks in the beginning of a startup. It is.
Talk about the piece about, I don't know how you put it, but the rewiring your operational system. I mean, it's hard, right? Because you're human. Like you have all those kind of emotional triggers, and I mean, how do you get rid of it? You can't get rid of it. Like you can at points minimize them. I mean, I'll be happy to hear your routines. I told you like before we started recording the podcast, this year I decided to, at least now, I don't want to say the whole year, but like from January, usually January comes and I'm like, all in 120%. This year I decided to start a little bit more mindfully, meaning not with the same intensity. And genuinely, after, 5 weeks, 6 weeks now, my results are better. And I'm feeling so much better. But there's a few changes that I made, tweaks. It wasn't bad, but things about, like, when do I go to bed? How many times do I exercise? The food that I eat,
the food,
nutrition, crazy.
Yep.
I stopped eating candy. I stopped eating, every once in a while I'll get some Coke Zero or Coke Zero, I need a little bit of something. But then it becomes a habit, right? And now I kind of completely switched it off hopefully for a long time. All these small things, Melissa.
Oh, yeah.
All these small things.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I used to and I'm back in this for a minute, which I hate, but I used to sacrifice working out, and I was just like, well, I can stop doing that and I'm fine. And I realized it's not just like for health, it's mental as well. Like I need to free up my mind, and exercise really helps me do that. I haven't worked out that much this month, but yeah, I mean, I cut out all sugar. I don't have sugar at all or carbs. Like for some reason I don't really crash. I drink a lot of coffee, which maybe people are like, I cut out caffeine. I can't do that. I drink like 15 to 20 cups a day. It's like really crazy. But
does it
I do
work
that.
Though? Does it work?
Yes.
Like there's no
really
problem.
Does.
You can sleep. You can sleep
Yep.
well and
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I do that. I cut out sugar. What else do? I I live in beautiful San Diego. I try to walk around the block and like get some vitamin D or go out on my balcony or just like get some air and get some light. It's pretty important. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely all these like really small decisions. Oh, I don't drink during the week, which is really important. Like I love wine and I love having a glass of wine, but I will not touch alcohol during the week at all. It messes with my sleep cycle. It messes with my moods, my anxiety. I can't do it. Even like a glass with dinner doesn't work for me anymore. So I cut out
Love
alcohol. I'll
it.
have a
Love it.
cocktail on the weekend, maybe, if I'm feeling good enough to have it. But I also feel like it very much, my anxiety and alcohol like don't really mix. But yeah, I drink a lot of coffee. I cut out sugar. I try to get some exercise. And I try to get some sunlight. And that's sort of kind of my good and my bad. And I eat very healthy.
Yeah, amazing. You're extremely efficient. I've seen you. But what I'm curious to hear more about is how do you make sure you're effective? So do you have
Sure.
any kind of a, you know, personal system that you develop, like a productivity system, meaning, I don't know, this is how I'm going to, now you're building, right? It's
Yeah.
still early stage. Like how do I make sure, like, do you have like a weekly, monthly process system, day to day? What do you do to make sure I only do the things that matter and I say no
Yeah.
to everything else?
Yeah. I mean, I think like startups are hard to do that with exactly. ClickUp is
Mhm.
really helpful. Just keeps me organized and like helps me be more productive as like a productivity management system. But in terms of focus, I think there's always like one or two big problems that you're solving for. And I am good at, again, like blocking out noise and laser focusing on those problems and not sleeping until those problems get fixed. And obviously if they're technical issues, I can't do that. My co-founder does that. But if they're like operational systematization problems, strategy and creative problems, I like laser focus on those, and that's it. I will dedicate 100% of my time to solving those and then moving on to the next problem. There's always issues, but what are your two most big, like the two things that would keep you up at night, and just like focus on those until they don't keep you up at night? And what are the next things that do? And then you're able to start looking into the future. It's just, you can't divide your time into 1,000 different buckets. So you have to like really just laser focus on the biggest challenges at any given point. That's how I work well. I mean, I can do other things. Like obviously there are things that come up. We have a team. Things come up throughout the other day where I have to like answer and think strategically about what the answer will be and give direction. But everything else within my day and within my time is designated to that. I'll also there's some tasks that'll take me 3 to 4 hours to do really well. I just time block. I say yes to podcasts because it's a part of my marketing strategy. It's inbound marketing. It's founder-led growth, which is entirely what we're doing this, and our other motion is really a byproduct of our product. But this and that are our two marketing motions. So I do this. It's a part of our strategy, and that's it. That's what I dedicate myself to. And that's 100% of where my time goes. And everything else is a no. It's like a no. I mean, there's people that are like, oh, can we do I'd love to do a master class and you could do this. And I'm like, if it doesn't contribute back to my business at this point, I can't do it. I love doing things. I love saying yes to everything. And I love not leaving no stone unturned. I think that's like a really cool way of operating in your life. And I've always benefited from really great things. Like even us meeting in Austria, it was because I said yes to Stefan off of a LinkedIn message. And I think that's like one of those no stone unturned things. And look at us now, like years later, we're on this podcast together. But there's certain times in your life where you have to consolidate your time, your energy, and say no. So, that's where I am right now. Maybe that'll change in a couple months.
When is it that you usually, wake up and start hustling? What is the time you start to get into the working mode?
I kind of depends. I mean, we've been up till 2 or 3, so it's usually now like 7:30. Otherwise it's 6. But if I'm going to bed at 3, I need more than 3 hours sleep. I don't really operate too well on 3 hours. Even with 20 cups of coffee, it's 3 hours is tough for
But
me.
you're more after dinner, like kind of this person that's like really evening person, or like morning, or depends.
Kind of depends on what's happening when. Like I'll, at night I definitely get a lot of good ideas, a burst of energy, kind of I want to keep going. In the morning I get that too. I wake up very excited to like get a start to the day. And then kind of mid-afternoon, there's always some weirdness. I don't know what happens. Maybe it's the time of the year. But there's always like some weird slump that I hit that I'm like, what do I do? Like, I feel very fidgety. I'm like, oh, I need more coffee. Sometimes when I'm in back-to-back meetings, that doesn't happen because I don't have a chance to think. But otherwise, yeah, I'm like very much like in they call it a weird funk. I don't know what happens. And I try to get out of that. I try to either like drink coffee or focus or go to a different room or go outside or just change my environment.
By the way, and that's probably not you, but for me, over drinking coffee is the reason for this afternoon kind of slump.
You know what? It's probably I'm probably crashing. Yeah, and you're right. I'm probably crashing. But then what I do is I drink more coffee to evade the crash. I hacked it. If you keep going, you never feel it.
And that's the lesson for today, kids. But let's say that your day is starting. Let's say it's 7 a.m. You slept well. Do you have like a list of your biggest problems to solve from the previous day? Like you just ClickUp, you said, but like how do you decide my day is gonna go like this so I can be maximum productive?
I mean, I look at my calendar the day before. I know what meetings I have. I know what time blocks I have available. I mean, the night is great because I can then like lock in. And if the tasks don't need to be finished during the day, like some of the stuff can be done overnight. It's great because some of our employees are East Coast hours. So if I get everything done at night, they have a 3-hour head start in the morning. So if I'm like, hey, this is everything we need to do tomorrow before I wake up, it's done when I wake up or it's in action. So there's certain things that are like make sense because of the time difference that I didn't think I would benefit from that I really do. So I can lock in and do the things that are more timely now while knowing I have like this nice gap between when that person is offline and when they wake up to be able to do it. So it's maximizing myself, and then also just understanding time zones really helps a lot. But yeah, I block out time. I try to be as efficient as I can during those times. I get out of LinkedIn, I turn off my phone, I sit in an area and I get rid of all my tabs and I just do that one thing because I toggle a lot, you know. I'm like, oh, let me click on this and click on this and click on this and you know, that there's a time tax to that for sure. And if you keep doing that, you start to lose focus, and then you start thinking about other things, and then all of a sudden you didn't do the thing that you blocked out 2 hours to do, and then you're like, oh my God, I'm so behind. So I think it's just having like unparalleled focus on the thing that you need to do, and then how good you feel when you got that done, and you're like, awesome, this is really going to help. And I think that's like the other piece. It's like when you're solving the big problems and you're tackling the strategies to be able to help solve those problems, and then you've done it, you know what you've done is impact driven. And there's definitely a different feeling between when I've done a task and I finish it, and then when I've done something that really helps the company and I finished it, and like what that impact emotion actually feels like. So I try to do the things that drive that feeling where I know I'm driving progress and growth within our company the most that I can.
If I remember correctly, BuzzFeed was your first kind of big role, right?
Yep.
And back then, if you compare yourself to today, you know, in terms of your leadership style, have you been the same, or how has your leadership style evolved over the years?
I mean, I've learned a lot about people, about management, about how people view you, about what you care about and how they view you. I think are two very different things. Like, I mean, it's nice to be liked, but it's better to be respected. And my first leadership role, I really cared if my coworkers and my employees who were my age wanted to be friends with me. And now I don't. I mean, I'm not here to make friends. If you like, I'd like that you like me, but I'd rather that you respect me and trust me and know that I'm steering the ship in the right direction. And when you talk to your friends or your wife or your husband or your partner, you say, wow, I have a great boss. She knows how to get shit done. She steers us in the right direction. She doesn't make stupid decisions, and she knows how to run a company. Like that's what I want. Where back then I used to care about, would they want to invite me over to a backyard barbecue? Like, you know, I was very young. I was 24, 25, like, and these folks that were under me were my age or older. So it was very hard because you're at the stage in your career where usually people are making friends and I'm managing them. So yeah, I care about very different things. I care much more about how I'm viewed as a leader, how I'm viewed as a founder, and the perception of me around my product and my leadership style. And am I doing the right things? Like, do people believe I'm doing the right things to steer a company? Like, I look at others and I'm like, that person is a fearless, awesome leader. And, we're not perfect. No one is perfect. But like, do they do the right things and do they make the right decisions consistently? Of course, there's always like gaps and lapses in things. But if, I think when you're, it's strong opinions loosely held.
Do you get inspiration from the people you work with, like, the CEOs you work with, colleagues and so on? Or is it also externally, you kind of listen to podcasts, read books? Like, what is your way to learn new things and get inspired?
LinkedIn, my colleagues, my teammates, we're in market in a really interesting way. So I'm having a ton of conversations every day, talking to a peer set that I never had access to before. Where when you're running marketing within a company, you're very rarely talking to people outside of your company. That's like a privilege because it's like, oh, you join a peer group or you join a marketing community. Where I am now is I'm speaking to these people on a daily basis, multiple times a day. So it's knowledge sharing. I'm understanding where they are in market. I'm understanding their challenges. My co-founder is very inspiring. His knowledge set is insane. He learns so fast. He shows me things every day that he's built, and I'm like, oh my God, like, this is so cool. I don't know how you did this. And then he explains it to me. So on the tech side, on the marketing side and industry side, we're doing interviews with some of the most interesting people in every single sector and vertical every single day. So the knowledge that's coming in is like it's very inspiring. Like, that's where I become inspired. And, I'm on LinkedIn a lot and I read from other people that inspire me too. And I think that's sort of like I was going to say trifecta, but I think it's four. But those are really the four more main sources of kind of inspiration for me on a daily basis. And it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. And I think that's also it's also a skill, channeling the inspiration into action. I don't like to just be inspired. I like to be inspired where I'm able to take certain pieces of that away and it drives me to action. So I sort of try to curate my inspiration around action-driven inspiration, if that makes sense.
Yeah, let's maybe dive a little bit deeper into your new company. What is the size right now? How many people are you guys currently, the company?
Yeah, we're 8 full-time and about 12 total. We'll probably be 15 in the next few weeks, so growing pretty fast. It's definitely, fun. It's firing on all cylinders. I think people are really excited to be working at the company because they've never done anything like this before. And to see it really work is really exciting. It's like when you're building something that like you've taken a bet on early and then it's working. It's like, oh my God, this is actually working. It's wild. So I think everyone that joined very early took a chance and a bet on us, and they're seeing like their hard work and our hard work sort of pay off. And like I remember, being in those shoes early on at BuzzFeed when I was an employee of the people that I was following, where it's the same feeling. And it's pretty awesome to feel that way. We've had early traction in market that's been really great. I think we're hovering over like really good product market fit. But there's things you have to do to get there and decide what that means and decide what customer fit looks like. I think is very interesting. Sometimes when you're very early, you take on customers that may not be long-term perfect customers for you. But you understand why, and you understand like how that affects business long-term. You understand what products you need to get to scale your business in other ways. There's a lot of really interesting things you learn very fast when you are able to go into market. And the biggest thing is like, I feel like founders always go into market too early. But I think the risk of not going into market too early outweighs the challenge of going into market early. And the biggest thing, we did was my co-founder and I would sit and talk a lot, like a lot. Like in the early days of the company, it was just us, and we'd become an echo chamber of what if this, what if that, what if this, what if that. And like there's a level of that that's really great. Like it's really great to like full like kind of future proof and business proof every problem. Like you think through every problem. I think that's awesome. But then it becomes but we're not in the market getting feedback. So until we're in market, we're never going to know if this is actually real. And then you start doubting yourself because you're like, I'm talking to you. You're talking to me. We don't know. So I think it's like when you start to do that to a level of exhaustion, it's like get into market as soon as possible. So I don't know. I just went on a very long tangent about going into market too early. But the company's 8 people, or actually 10 people, going on 15 in a few weeks. We're building really fast. We have about 20 customers, with 30 probably in the next month going live, which is pretty cool. We're seeing really great wins. We're talking to a ton of people across different industries. It's really working. It's really exciting.
It should be super exciting because, I mean, I'm just reflecting now. You've been part of those companies that ended up being, massive companies, and you've been one of the key employees, executives, running the stuff, impacting a lot of what's happening. But now it's your company, right? You can shape it the way you want. You have an empty canvas to design the team that you want to design the way you want it to be. And I'm wondering what are the most important? I'm getting excited and the light is going down. What are your core priorities when it comes to your culture, the team culture, the profiles of the people? What do you find most important?
People that there's always going to be issues, right? Like there's problems every day. It's admitting that there's an issue and it's solving that problem. It's like, I don't care that things are breaking or it's not working. Like, let's just figure out how to solve it. Like, I think that's the thing. And the honest answer to this is like, I used to very early on do it myself. I would pad like the bad stuff to make it seem less bad and focus on the good stuff. But the reality is the bad stuff, like if you can surface that and share with people internally, like it's okay. Like no one's going to get upset that this thing isn't working. Like but we need to be solutions oriented and figure out how to fix it. So come to me with the problem and come to me with 3 ways that we're going to fix it. And then, you know what ends up happening? It gets fixed. It gets fixed. We figure out a solution. Like these are not things that are like blockers in a way that like technically they're not possible. It's just we need different ways of thinking. So I think it's always just, I try to lead and my co-founder, we both try to lead. And sometimes like we're guilty of not doing this because it's high pressure. It's high stakes. We need to move fast. Things need to work. And we need to have really happy customers, and we need to have really happy people that we're interviewing. And we're doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interviews a month. And we have a lot of customers and we're doing things at like massive scale. So there's a lot of things like at play, but I think it's really just how do we, deal and surface the things that are not working? How do we make ourselves more efficient? How do we unblock ourselves? How do we fire ourselves daily? I think that's like the biggest thing. I used to say this all the time, but the reality is you can really do that now with technology. You can really fire yourself and make yourself more efficient, but it's scary because, am I needed? Like if I fire myself or how do I do that? I have to learn this new thing to be able to do that. But once you unlock that, you're able to do so much more because this other thing is just working in the background for you. So unlock the things that unblock the things that you don't need to be doing so that you can focus on the things that only you can do.
Just want to let it land, That was good. That was really good. Yeah, well said. And I think many founders listening now would be happy to kind of get some of these ideas. And by the way, we have a question. We have a question coming in.
Wow.
We're using this new platform, guys, so the questions are somehow not appearing here, but fortunately, I can see it on LinkedIn. Nate Saint is asking, what's your opinion on product and service versus marketing and the relationship between those two?
Product
and service versus marketing. in the relationship?
I think I understand the question. I mean, I think like if ideally all of those things should work very closely together within an organization. Um, I think that's the question. I'm not exactly sure, but I mean, I think your product and your service should be a growth lever as well for your honestly market yourself through your product and service. And there's many ways you can do that. Like there's amazing customer service, there's referrals, there's X, Y, and Z, and like your marketing should also really be able to incorporate strategies from what you're doing in product. I believe everything's sort of a flywheel, and all of those things should be working together in tandem. It's also like I say that it's hyper specific to like the industry and what you're doing and what that actually means. But I mean, what we're building here, we're building a product and a service where the flywheel and the motion is marketing itself. So if we do this right, we never actually ever have to do marketing ever. Marketing is this for me and our motion working. So we built a product that we would never have to market, which I wanted to do because I just never wanted to do marketing again. Marketing is so inefficient and like kind of like just it becomes like less efficient over time unless you're creating something of value that becomes more valuable to you. Like I think people are seeing this across the board. I mean, that's why we have customers, but like building an asset is the most important thing that you can do right now. And the asset becomes your marketing. And I would invest all my money in that, which we're doing.
So what you're doing is trying your best to create a product that, has a good product market fit and solves a great. So it's focused on the product, and on the other side, I mean, is that the plan? Like you'll be the Outlever lady, right? Like being known, going to conferences, like building this kind of brand that, is that how you see it?
I mean,
Or
I want to be the person that challenged what the traditional go-to-market motion looked like and fixed a lot of things that were broken because I went back to what I thought needed to be done and changed, and bringing a lot of motions that are usually isolated and kind of segmented into a place where they can all work in harmony together. And our product does exactly that. It harmonizes the marketing team by doing a motion that is a very human motion and also can get real ROI. It's like everything that I wanted to solve for, but also, there's got to be results there, which are very important to what we're doing.
So for the people listening to the podcast right now, who is this product for at the moment? Who should pay attention and maybe go to your webpage and follow you guys? Can you?
Yeah, I mean, anyone that is in a company that has probably a Series A or more. We do have seed companies that have kind of invested like in us as like their main marketing channel, which is very interesting. They're just like, I don't really believe in anything else, and I think what you guys are doing is very interesting. So we're going to invest everything here. It's a little harder because I think we work really well as a part of like a holistic marketing plan. But yeah, Series A, and you're looking to really do something that is differentiated and has great ROI and allows you to speak and reach your customers at scale and incorporates content and thought leadership, we're the company.
So if people want to get in touch, the webpage is the best place. Or
my LinkedIn, I answer very quickly, or our company page if you want a demo. But if you have a question, I'm always on LinkedIn.
And what else are you open for? Like you said, you're doing podcasts. Do you also do speeches, conferences? Like what are you open for if people are listening and want to maybe invite you?
Yeah, conferences, speaking engagements, anything that kind of contributes my time back to speaking about what we're doing and what I view the future as and how I see things kind of evolving, I'd like to speak about. I find that stuff very exciting, and it gives me a lot of like energy. So yeah, I'm open to all of that.
Absolutely love it. Melissa, just to wrap up the whole episode, what would be your final message to all these people there? There's a lot of aspiring executives. They want to be effective. They want to be able to face the challenges of the chaotic times we live in. What's your final message to our audience?
I would say there's a lot of different, especially now, ways to get distracted with different software, different AI, different services. You're going to try to want to learn about everything and master everything. But I think develop your strategy, develop your North Star, and let the things that are available shape how you get there more efficiently and faster, right? I think sometimes people just get, we always see this happen and it just happens. It's like cyclical, but everyone gets into a like software, just like software chaos, basically. And they become then kind of constricted by their own decisions to use software because they think software is going to shape their strategy rather than their strategy shape the products and the services and the software that they use. So I think come up with a high level strategy and then figure out the tools that can help you get there rather than the other way around.
Boom. And make sure to reach out to Melissa if you need any support, help, or if you want an amazing guest for your podcast or a speaker for your conference. Melissa, love your, is it called mullet? How do you pronounce that?
Yeah, it's a mullet.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. Beautiful. Thank you so much for being with us for the third time, I think. We're definitely going to have you back at some point. And everybody who's been with us, thank you so much for being with us. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share with a friend. And of course, check out Productivity Mastery on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, everywhere. The more people subscribe to the podcast, the more leverage we have to invite amazing people like Melissa on the podcast. So, hey, click the button. Thank you so much and see you once again next week. Ciao.